Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Reclamation Hour podcast. It is officially spooky season, right? As we record this, it is October 2nd. So we are going to do some spooky season topics here on the podcast. We thought that would be fun. And if anybody has requests for that, please shoot us emails or DMs so we can take that into consideration, because we have lots of ideas for the next month, but we thought it would be fun to kind of hit some of the spookier stuff in the spiritual world. So we're going to start with the whole concept and idea of like attachments. So spirit attachments, vampiric spirits, entities. These are things you kind of heard us kind of mention on the podcast, but we've never really dove into. Is that the word I'm looking for?
Mm-hmm.
So we thought, let's start there. That could be kind of fun, right? Mm-hmm. So is there anything you want to start with? Because otherwise there's actually a lot of nuance in all of these things. And my more shamanic-y, for lack of a better word, right, shamanic background is going to come out here when we start to talk about these things.
Yeah. Should we start with what are when we refer to attachments, what does that mean? Attachments.
Yeah.
Attachments.
Okay. So
and entities.
So when we talk about attachments, right, we're talking about anything that's attached to your energetic field, your whole energetic system that should not be there. Mm-hmm. And this is where there's like so many misconceptions, because we see like the whole love and light community is like, oh, there's nothing bad out there. There's nothing. Yeah. Right. You don't need to protect yourself from anything. Protection magic isn't necessary. And that's absolutely positively not true. Just because you refuse to look at it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Mm-hmm. And then we also see this in like the people who do talk about entity attachments just stop there. And so there's actually this huge problem with spiritual practitioners that I see talking about entities and nothing else. And it's wildly dangerous for a practitioner or a priestess of any kind to not have fluency around these topics. Mm-hmm. And so when we're talking about attachments, it really is just anything that's attached to your energy system in general that shouldn't be there. And that can include like cords to other people, and it can kind of include all that stuff. But we're going to start with sort of entities and vampiric attachments. So the idea of like a spirit attachment that is attached.
They're basically non-physical or unembodied. Is that the word for it? Unembodied?
Maybe disembodied. I'm not sure.
Disembodied
doesn't have a body.
Beings or presences and influences. This sometimes could manifest as actual spirits. Basically non-benevolent, if you will, energies.
Yeah.
But again, I say that with nuance, because remember, good versus bad, that's quite like black and white. Sometimes these attachments actually show us where we need to be healing a little bit more. So again, take that, with nuance when I say non-benevolent energies.
Exactly. So let's talk about what they are, and then we'll talk about how they attach, because I want to come back to that point.
Yeah.
And so when she says non-benevolent, right, this gives us a spectrum. So we have everything from just like doesn't even have a consciousness and is just, it doesn't even really, it's not trying to be a problem. It just kind of inherently is. All the way up to like truly malevolent, trying to screw with you, harmful. I still wouldn't use the word evil, but other people might use the word evil. I don't think it's a helpful word.
Or dark. Sometimes they use dark. I don't really like that either.
Right. And so there's this whole range on these types of spirits. Now there's a whole range of spirits as well. So entities are things that have broken off of the collective shadow. So these come from humanity. These tend to be fairly easy to clear. They are, they're just born of the collective shadow. Whereas something like a vampiric spirit is actually its own spirit that isn't originally from here and wasn't created by humanity. And then there's just like all kinds of other spirits that like you can get into, which we won't. Now, none of these are demons, and we're going to do a separate episode on
Thank you for
demons.
saying that. I was like...
And so we're going to do a whole separate episode on like what a demon is and the like the Goetic infernals and things like that, because they've really been wrapped up in this concept of evil. And so everyone's like, oh, the demons. And it's like, I
A lot of the spiritual community categorizes entities as demons when really,
exactly,
no, that's nowhere near the same.
And actually, the infernals can be your greatest ally in clearing malevolent.
And the most, and the most grounding, the most empathetic towards, our human experiences as well. Which is the irony, right? But thank you for saying that. I'm a demon apologist, okay?
Yeah. So we'll do a whole separate episode, but let's talk about this really quick. When we think about there being 3 realms, right? You have like the upper realms, our realm, and the underworld. All of these realms are divine, and you have like angels, for example, in the upper realms, and you have infernals in the underworld. The underworld is not an evil place, so we will come back to that. So they are divine beings who reside in the underworld. But these other various types of attachments, because we have entities born of the collective shadow. We have things like vampiric spirits that are just not from here. This is where we can get into like galactic spirits, right, that are not from here, who might be causing problems. And we can get into, which we'll talk about again separately, is like pieces of human souls or whole human souls who are stuck. Think hauntings, think like, we'll get into that separately too. So this is where it's like spooky season. Let's talk about the spooky shit.
It's also, it's also based on like human trauma or like unresolved energetic imbalances as well. If that paints a picture better. I just want to say that.
So entities are something that people talk about a lot, although they call them demons. And born of the collective shadow, they tend to hook into our own shadows. And so this is where, like, by doing your trauma work, by doing your healing work, getting more embodied, you can naturally kind of release these things. Although sometimes we do have to go in what I would call more of a shamanic way to really remove them from your energy field, shut it down, heal your energy field. Because while an entity cannot like cause a problem that doesn't exist in you already, it can push on things that are already there. So if you already have a lot of anxiety, it can't create anxiety, but it can push on anxiety and make it worse. It can push on people pleasing. It can push on trauma imprints. It can push on all these things and really make them worse. So this can be one of those pieces. When we look at healing a human being in a truly holistic way, this is one of the pieces of that, where if we can pull the entity out, sometimes we can break that loop you're stuck in enough for the other things that you're doing to finally get some traction.
Yeah.
On whatever thing we're talking about, right? And these things can attach in past lives and you can carry them forward. It's not a moral failing either. I want people to really understand, because especially depending on the type of attachment that we're looking at and the framework that we're looking at this through, we're all carrying stuff from past lives, and we have to look at that.
Or there are attachments that also just they attach to us as well. As we're healing. Exactly. You can pick them up going to the grocery store or going to a concert or going to the bar.
Exactly.
These things are really everywhere. Everyone carries their shit. And some people also, they're kind of these little energetic sponges. So again, not a moral failing. Doesn't mean that you're not spiritual enough. None of that bullshit.
Or good enough. It doesn't mean you're broken. It's basically just a thing that happens. And it happens more. Well, that's not what I should say. I should say it happens also in these spiritual spaces. And that's why we've talked about before, and I've talked about before. And this is why in my upcoming priestess trainings, we are really focusing on this, is because entities and vampiric spirits can be attached to your practitioner and then feed through them, basically. I mean, it's a huge, so when people are just going all love and light that doesn't exist, it's not stopping the problem. It's not stopping the problem. And this is where we get into vampiric spirits, right? So vampiric spirits are actual spirits from another place. And they've basically like lost their connection to source, if you will. And so they have to feed on other things in order to stay alive. And this is where we all think about like energy vampires as in people, right? Like some people are energy vampires, but what you're feeling is their attachments reaching through them to try and feed on you. And vampiric spirits are different from entities in a few really important ways. One, again, they're not born of the collective shadow, so they aren't like a part of human.
Yeah.
Right? And so entities are much easier to clear because they're from us, essentially, whereas vampiric spirits are not. And they also come with a lot of glamour. And so they can actually really, like, if you're convinced that love and light only and you have vampiric attachments, that is that weird psychosis-y, love and light, bypassy energy that you pick up on from people. This is vampires. This is vampiric spirits.
And this is something that Kate last week, because we were talking about this, literally, like, as she's explained, because in my background, I haven't come across too many vampiric spirits that I know of. At least I don't have that experience.
And that's
with those
the problem,
kinds.
is that if you don't go looking for them, you won't find them. If you go looking for entities, you won't come across vampires.
Yeah.
Sorry, continue.
And no, this is so good because, yes, I've experienced entities and I've experienced attachments, and like have seen them. But vampiric spirits are a little trickier for me because I haven't had too much experience that I know of consciously.
Yeah.
And so, Kate was explaining this and I'm like, so the math really mathed last week when you told me, you're like, the reason why you feel so much ick from all these like false spiritual gurus that are like, they have so a big following, massive audiences. And if you look at them, the behavior is very like culty behavior. When it comes to, these like more, I don't want to say famous, but like more well-known, spiritual gurus and things like that.
Right. And there are lots of people with huge accounts who are very ethical and very,
yes, but absolutely.
I think everybody listening can like think of somebody who.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I was telling Kate, I was like, there's just something about it. And like, it's icky. It feels really icky. And it feels like I want to, like, it feels repulsive.
You were like, is this like me? Like, am I just being triggered by that?
Yes,
like you're feeling vampires.
Yeah. And I told her, because I was telling Kate, I was like, sometimes I gaslight myself. And I was like, is there any part of me that's just, a shadow of me that's being triggered at the moment? And so like, I always kind of just vacillated between basically gaslighting myself and also being like, why am I feeling this icky ick that I cannot explain? But also looking at this like cult-like behavior from the following, there's something that's not clicking. It's not good.
Yeah.
Right. And she was like, it's the glamour. It's the glamour behind the vampiric attachments. And I'm like, the math is mathing finally, because for a long time, for years and years, I could not understand. I could not comprehend, the level of like spiritual psychosis, as well as the cult-like behavior around these more, figures, more prominent figures in the spiritual community. And they tend to be the same ones who often say there's no such thing as vampiric spirits. There's no such thing as entities. There's none of this. None of this exists. When we know damn well it does, because also, we touched base on this quite often in the podcast, but, we wouldn't have death rights, right? We wouldn't have death rights if things were that easy, if souls never got stuck. Like, that's why we Indigenous folks and anything that was pre-colonial in terms of our spirituality and our beliefs and our rituals included these rights to be able to help, and even Dia de los Muertos, like Day of the Dead, that's also a way that, it's a grief right as well. It's a right that facilitates that piece. And for, these new agers to come in and say, that's not a thing. Like, there's nothing evil. As long as you don't believe in it, there's nothing that can do you harm. And it's like, well, no.
That's not how it works.
That's not how it works, because you're not going to tell me we have thousands and thousands and thousands of years of history where we're doing these even like soul retrievals for shits and giggles.
Right, where Indigenous people and their medicine men and women understood that when the body was sick, that we needed to look for spiritual reasons,
the spirit as well.
And so this is where it's like, illness of any kind, mental, physical, it usually starts in the spiritual realm.
Yeah.
Where it's the easiest to it's easiest to handle. And if we don't handle it there, it's going to manifest as psychologically, and you're going to need therapy and you're going to need whatever. And you don't handle it there, then it tends to leach into your physical body, where it becomes even harder and longer, more expensive to treat. And this is where we're talking about, women who, so let's go with our repressed anger example, right? Like repressed anger in women causes all kinds of health issues. Like we know this is not debatable. Yeah. But the people pleasing that leads to that is something we can talk about in psychology and in therapy, right? And the vampires and the entities that push on people pleasing are in the spiritual realm, and we can remove those. And so it's this interplay of all of these things, right? But the spirit attachments push on all of this stuff. And vampiric spirits specifically need something outside of them in order to live, in order to connect to the divine, in order to feel any kind of love. And so if you think about that,
would you say it's an energetic harnessing, though? Just because you're,
it's like a siphoning.
Yeah.
They're like, they attach into your energy field, and then they basically siphon things. And so this is where that feeling of either needing to source things outside of you can become unbearable, like love or safety or acceptance coming from somebody outside of you. It can also push on things like overspending, because if I just think void energy, right? Like I just need more in order to fill in the blank, in order to feel happy, in order to feel content, in order to feel anything. And if you think about the stereotypical vampires in movies, right? How they have to source things from outside of them in order to live. And how in the movies, they tend to be very charming and very suave and very, you know what I mean? Until the person doesn't do what they want. And then they are mean, evil in the movies, right? When we see vampiric attachments on people, think about people and this is that culty behavior where you have the spiritual leader at the top who's so nice and so everything until you do
very alluring
something they don't want you to do. And then all of a sudden you're the problem. And that whole nice facade completely falls apart. Like this is vampiric energy.
Yeah.
And the glamour that these spirits have and the way that they can weaponize it means that you won't find them if you don't go looking.
Have you watched Sinners?
No.
Okay, I highly recommend it. highly fucking recommend for anyone who's listening to this and has not yet seen Sinners. Everything that Kate is talking about right now, and again, I'm not going to spoil it for you if you haven't, but you're going to understand it when you watch that movie.
Okay.
It's an amazing.
Is it like a
movie.
Thriller or like a horror? Because I don't really like those.
Yeah, it's definitely under the thriller horror genre, but honestly, I've seen worse horror. Like it's right. Gonna be.
I'll look
fine.
up some spoilers and then I'll be able to handle it. I'm just not like a big horror thriller person.
Yeah, well, I'm not either.
Personally, but honestly, some of it could be because of this. It's like I'm slaying vampires in the astral. I don't need to see
I did not know that. Because my husband also is huge on no horror or gory scenes or none of that. It's
not even the gore; it's the emotion. Like if it's really emotional, I can't. Yeah.
No, but I watched that movie because you know what, my wonderful love Pedro Pascal was highly raving about it. And I was like, okay, this is about oppression and systemic oppression and and I started watching. I was like, wait a minute, this is not that. This is a thriller. This is it was oppression. It was energetic oppression. It was vampiric. So anyway, please watch it.
Well, and that's where it's all of the colonization, the patriarchal shit, there are spirits behind all of this. Yes. And I'm very good at paradigm jumping. So I can explain to you all of these things, through the lens of spirit manipulation. I can explain it through the lens of psychology, through the lens of history. And so I'm really good at paradigm jumping But I think that this is where the idea of there are multiple truths in quotes starts to become true. I have a lot of problems with that statement because it's used to really just bypass and ignore. Like people will tell me, well, there are multiple truths when it comes to like attachments. I'm like, well, there's not though. These are real. And if you don't want to, maybe this is not the lifetime where you're meant to come to terms with that. And that's okay. Like your journey is not my journey. But there are some things that are just objectively true. And I completely lost my train of thought. Hold on. Wait. Was I talking about the world? So anyway, I can explain all of this to you through
paradigm jumping.
Yeah, through the spirits that are on the other side of the veil pushing on this. And it's not as conspiracy theory-ish. Like I know some people really run, especially like the reptilians, and it gets very weird. But the vampiric attachments, the entity attachments, these other kinds of spirits that can really push on this shit. This is where we get into like a matrix discussion. Like, what is the matrix? But what I need, it's always the question, right? It's like, who benefits when you believe something? And so who benefits when I believe that there is nothing bad in the universe, that the universe is all love and all light, that if I just ignore the hard shit and I keep myself high vibe, then nothing bad will happen. Like, who benefits in that? 'Cause it sure as hell isn't me or the majority of the population. And in fact, then these spirits just get to keep feeding and feeding, but they push on all of this stuff. And so the bypassing and the toxic positivity, like this is all vampiric. And people really just don't see it. And so this is where the love and light community is really problematic. But I can think of a couple really big accounts off the top of my head that talk about entities all the time. And they're in quotes, evil spirits, and they call them demons. And I have never once heard them mention anything about vampiric energy. And I have never... Listen. The only thing more dangerous than a practitioner who is all love and light and telling you to ignore this is a practitioner who understands entities and only entities. Yeah. And doesn't understand vampiric spirits or any of the other spirits that are at play, because they are just people. They are causing more harm than good. I'm trying to
Well, also, I don't think that they have a piece of the picture, but not the whole picture.
And they think it's the whole picture.
You don't, right. And because you don't know what you don't know, what's happening is that you're not only are you perpetuating the problem, but you're not even understanding what you're up against, even though you're facilitating these,
Well, and vampiric spirits can think very much like MLM programs, right? These like multi-level management schemes. But it's very much like that. Like vampiric energy really works like that on the other side of the veil. And so when we have a spiritual practitioner, especially one who's being given consent to rummage around in somebody's energy field to remove entities, who doesn't understand that they have vampiric attachments, and so therefore those vampiric attachments are now gaining access to other people's energy fields. This is a problem. This is wildly dangerous, and it screws up your whole energetic channel. So these practitioners also think their channel is perfectly clear, and it is absolutely positively not. So vampiric energy really screws with your third eye. It really screws with your heart. And if anybody knows anything about the Gospel of Mary, sacred feminine spirituality, we understand that the way we perceive vision is through the eye of the heart. And this is the energy center that vampires really, really hit. They put this void-like energy into a heart space, and it becomes a huge fucking problem. And these spiritual practitioners who think that their energy fields are perfectly clear, or worse, know what they're doing. Because I actually do know of one of those who she's very clear on what's happening in her energy field, and she's okay with it in order to get money. But I think more often people just really aren't aware. Yeah. But that's not an excuse for doing harm
either. You know what I'm saying? We don't know what we're looking for either. Like when we don't have personal experience like that. But I think it's the responsibility. Right.
Exactly.
I was going to say you have all the more responsibility to learn about this and understand kind of like what you're going up against, because there's an exchange there.
when you are the spiritual practitioner holding space for these types of things, whether it's a ceremony, it's a one-on-one thing, your energetic field, the clarity and integrity of your energetic field and your energetic channel determines what happens in the session. Full stop and a discussion. And so if your energetic field and your energetic channel is not actually clear and in integrity, it screws with what can happen in the session. And so there's one woman I can think of who I see online all the time who will talk about clearing entities from people and generational curses in like a month of one-on-one work. And I'm like,
yep.
I'm sorry, it takes you a month?
That's not true. It does not take that long, by the way.
Give me an hour and we can get more done than that. Like, and that's not me coming from an ego place. That's me coming from, I have spent 3 years clearing out my energy field and being in integrity in my energy field. And I'm not perfect. None of our energy fields are ever going to be perfectly in integrity and perfectly clear. This is just probably not a thing that's going to happen. But it's my job as the practitioner to be aware of all of these things and to be always working on it and to be setting up the appropriate protections and all of these things for my client. Because my energetic field is what determines how quickly we can get these things done and what the options are available to us. And so
I've never had an experience where, I think the whole month situation is just as a form to validate how much she's charging is a thing.
And darling, do you know how much, like, if I was to work with somebody one-on-one for a month for energetic clearing, I don't really offer that right now, but if anybody feels like they need this service, please do reach out and like we will put you in I can put you in contact with people. First of all, depending on your soul's incarnation arc, a month is probably not enough. And second of all, I can get so much done in a month with people.
Rather than just taking care of like one ancestral curse. Yeah. No, I the other thing too is that healing really is a spiral, and it's not just a physical, like not just on the physical realm, also on the psychological, spiritual, like, and so sometimes, we tend to things and, in our day-to-day lives, we slip out of the habits that can continue to set those boundaries up, right? Those energetic boundaries up. And so we have to go back and redo the thing, right? Tend to that a little bit more. And sometimes it really is like an onion, like you're unraveling layers of it.
Yes.
And so again, for someone to say, oh, it takes me a month. One, it doesn't take that long to remove one single entity or one single ancestral curse. Two, if you're going to be like healing, you're going to be healing all your life. Like, what are you talking about?
Especially from somebody who doesn't know the difference between a demon and an entity.
Yeah.
It's
and I think
to me.
That's also one of the ways that I'm like, I can't, for me, it weeds out the spiritual practitioners who aren't actually in integrity, because if you actually understand entities, you know that they're very separate things from demons or goetic infernals and all of that.
Right. Which is why I just use the term infernal, because
infernals. Yep.
I don't personally feel the need to try and fix the word demon at this point.
Yeah. See, I'm still trying to reclaim the word. But also I'm an astrologer. Like when we talk about daemons or, daimons, like we stick to the actual definition of it, which is basically an intermediary spirit between, this realm and the next realm. And
we'll come back to demons. We'll do an episode on demons.
Yeah, we'll have to. But that's definitely one of the ways that I'm like, this person I don't think is understanding that too well. And then of course, once you see that, then there's like more red flags that all of a sudden pop up and shit. And I'm like, okay. Yeah. But again, it's also that vampiric, the glamour, that's in a world where we're still very much under spiritual psychosis. The mass crowds of it. Of course, there's that energy harnessing, Of course, it's successful still.
Exactly. Should we just talk about the Matrix quick? Should we just mix that
I was going to
into
say,
this
when you said it earlier, I was like, oh, she's going to get into it. But I was like, maybe she doesn't want to. Okay.
Well, I was like, maybe we'll do a whole episode. But actually, I think that this is what the Matrix is. So this is one of those things that we can explain to you from numerous paradigms, right? What is the Matrix? Because 90% of the people talking about the Matrix are talking about the Matrix wrong, especially when they're like, oh, I've escaped the Matrix. Okay.
No.
Cool.
You have not.
Cool. Because you're here to like live in the world. And the moment that you interact with the world, you're interacting with the matrix in quotes. But I just can't with people. Yeah. So to me, so what I have come to know and experience, right, is that this matrix is kind of an energetic grid. So I'm going to talk about on the other side of the veil, and then we'll talk about how it plays out on this side. Does that make sense to you?
Yep.
Okay. Let's do that. So this whole idea that there's nothing bad on the other side of the veil is wild to me, especially because this idea comes from the same people who preach as above, so below. Okay.
Yeah.
If that is a universal law and malevolence exists on this plane, then it has to exist on the other side of the veil. If this is a universal law. Okay.
Love it.
So from what I have seen, what I have experienced in myself and in clients, from my mentors, the energetic matrix on the other side of the veil is very much held in place by a sort of pyramid scheme of various spirits. So we have entities, which we already talked about. We have vampiric spirits. We have various spirits that used to be human souls. We will talk about that in a separate episode because I want to talk about that separately. We also had, then you get into things like various galactic, energies, and we get all the way up to essentially what is the concept of a demiurge, which is a false god, a god who believes himself to be the god of the universe. This is a Gnostic belief that I am not an expert in exactly what the Gnostics believed here. But from how I understand it, I really think they were onto something. And when we look at certain strains of Christianity, I'm trying to speak very carefully here, certain strains of Christianity who are worshiping a God who says he is all love while being very vengeful and punishing, we are actually looking at the demiurge. He sits at the top of this sort of pyramid scheme when it comes to the matrix. And this is a malevolent spirit that is now being worshipped by millions of people around the globe. I know numerous Christians who have not plugged into that and have plugged into an actual God of love. So I just want to make that clear. I've been around Christians that I get absolutely no vampiric energy from, no demiurge energy from. This is not Christianity across the board.
But it just tends to be witnessed there often, or
but
even
in
just, honestly,
specific strains of it.
Very specific strains of it. And I've also seen it in Judaism. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
It's like the Abrahamic God, really, that we...
Right. Exactly. And so this is a being who has reached sort of godlike status and energy, who believes himself to be the creator of the universe and isn't. And this is something we see in Gnostic literature about a God who believes himself to be. And then this is even where we get into the whole discussion, which we've talked about before, right? How Genesis is polytheistic. And so the God of the Bible is actually just the God to whom the ancient Israelite people were given.
Yeah. Yep.
And I'm not saying all the ancient Israelite people were worshiping this evil demiurge, but I'm just saying there's numerous lenses we can look through here.
You can also see that in ancient Sumerian and Mesopotamian lore with, Enki and Lil's story. So we see this across many, many ancient sacred texts.
Yeah. And so people will say that they are out of the matrix. Okay. And from an energetic perspective, if you haven't basically done enough work to release your energy field in its entirety from this entire MLM of spirits and the demiurge at the top, you are not, in fact, out of the matrix. And this demiurge who sits at the top is more than happy to be worshipped as a god of vengeance and also a god of love and light only.
Mm-hmm.
Either suit the thing just fine and either suit the matrix. And when we're talking to spiritual practitioners who only understand entities and not the rest of it, we have a problem. And this is why when people dive into the love and light spaces, so two things I want to say here. When people dive into the love and light spaces, they have not transcended the matrix. They're just playing into another level of it, because that is all of this vampiric glamour. That is all of this like demiurge glamour and psychosis glamour. And this is also why people go running back to the church, because they start to see this stuff. And they don't have the ancestral traditions. Yeah. They don't have the mentors. They don't have the grounding and the understanding. And of course it's scary. So they go, oh my God, it's a demon. And they run back to church, where the demiurge makes it stop because you're back in church giving him your energy. And now I sound like an absolute crazy person.
You don't. No, you don't. We see that a lot. You know, do you know how many freaking YouTube videos I've come across where like these spiritual practitioners or witches all of a sudden, you know, come to Jesus Christ and they are atoning for their sins and they're repenting and they're burning their, you know, esoteric books and their tarot decks and all of that stuff. And it's like, we see that a lot.
And some people really do find the divine in church.
And that's, you know, everyone's journey is different. But to say amazing. That, but to say that, you know, there's no such thing as this. Do you not see the state of the world? Like, that's quite indicative of how this is working. You know, think about our political hierarchies. Think about that.
So that's what I was going to say. Is then on this side of on the veil, it plays out in capitalism, patriarchy, war. I mean, just think about like all the extraction that happens to make iPhones.
Yeah.
Tell me that's not vampiric.
It's right there. It's hidden in plain sight. It's hidden in plain sight. And we've also kind of talked about this in previous episodes where we both, you know, believe that there is the spirit of extraction, which is
I would call this
the demiurge. Yeah.
Although also the vampires.
Yeah, I was going to say, and that is, you know, that particular frequency that, you know, these spirits lock in on. And that's why we see, you know, what we see. That's why colonialism has reigned for, you know, a couple thousand years now, because colonialism is built on extraction.
Exactly.
Yeah. Only those at the top of the MLM.
Yeah.
In this 3D reality.
And that's not to like make fun of people who have actually found success or happiness within some of those companies that get slammed for that.
I'm mostly talking about the hierarchy of the colonial patriarchy and how we're seeing that in the political, you know, sense. We see how they're extracting from the people.
Right.
Energetically, financially, you know, resources and you know, the extraction never ends. And so we have this urgent climate collapse, urgent ecocide, urgent, you know, famines, genocides, active starvation of people. We see all of this happening in this planet. And we also see some of these bigots trying to conquer a planet like Mars. Again,
exactly.
Like the extraction never ends. That's the demiurge spirit. It's like, I want more. This planet is collapsing. Humanity's collapsing, but I don't care. I want more. Let's look into how we can live on Mars.
And it also comes down to an unconscious, sometimes conscious, but an unconscious fear of what happens when we die. And so we'll talk about that when we talk about like stuck human souls and stuff. Because when you die, these spirits don't just disappear. So then we have this unconscious need being fueled by vampiric spirits to not die, to hack death, which is like, we're kind of in the position we're in because like a handful of super rich men can't handle the fact that someday they're going to die.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But is there anything else you want to say about spirit, like vampires, entities? What I do want to say here is a lot of these things, because I'm like, okay, so we really dove into the Matrix. Is there anything we need to say about that before I wind us back just a little bit?
Yeah.
Because I don't want people to panic. Like I don't want everyone listening to panic.
Here's the thing: why we shouldn't panic. Because our ancestors knew how to deal with this.
Exactly.
Right? we have that wisdom. Should we return to our ancient wisdom, our roots, and reconnect with that and reclaim that, we'll be good. They had this understanding, you know, they had the understanding, the complete understanding of these situations, and they also had the antidote. Should we return to that? We return to our center.
Well, and one of the pieces of advice that really goes awry, right, is that if you're just high vibe enough, then none of this stuff can attach to you. And this is true, but it's also wildly untrue at the same time. Because high vibe, being high frequency, like energetic attachments tend to, yes, vibrate at a lower frequency. And so if you are in quotes low vibe, and everyone stick with me here for a second, please. If you are in quotes low vibe, it is easier for things to attach to you. However, being high vibe or low vibe doesn't really have to do with like eating a plant-based diet and doing your Kundalini yoga every single day and like whatever. Okay. It has to do with those places in you that are not in coherence, those places in you where you aren't acting from a true place of authenticity. So when we talk about authenticity, exactly. So authenticity is this like buzzword, right? But it's really who we are underneath all of the conditioning, underneath all of the societal conditioning, the piece of us that remembers its divinity. And when we can come back into alignment with that piece of us and act from that place, this is how we end up high frequency. This is what closes those places that all of these things can attach to us. Because if we were really, truly, if every single one of us truly remembered the divinity within us and remembered the divinity within other people and acted from that place, the world would not be the way that it is. And so it is in those moments of self-betrayal, not being in right relationship, vampirizing yourself or allowing other people to vampirize you, that we create incoherence. And it is that these things can hook into. So what we are here to do, in my opinion, is to remember our own divinity and to embody it fully. And that does not mean just looking away from hard stuff. That means acting from that place. And when we do that, if you're truly doing that, there is no way to not be in right relationship with other people or the planet or yourself or the collective or anything. You know what I mean? So it's when we... This is that concept of sin from the Gospel of Mary, where you yourselves create sin when you act in accordance with adultery. Adultery is not, in this context, cheating on your spouse. It is an illegitimate mixing. It is when you forget that you are divine and you act only from your human self. And so we are here to learn to embody that divinity in its fullness and to stop outsourcing our power, to stop pedestalizing deities. And this is not in like I'm so amazing, I'm a god. Like, that's not what I mean. I mean, you are actually remembering that piece of you that is from source and acting from that place. And when we do that, there's nothing for any of this to hook into.
Exactly.
We're looking for sovereignty here, right? When you know your energetic field so much that you know when something else has entered it, when you know your own mind to the extent that you are no longer, you know, what's the saying? Like you're acting in the world as opposed to reacting to it. This only comes from that true place of sovereignty and really knowing your authenticity underneath all the layers of conditioning.
And being able to embody that divinity.
Mm-hmm. Even when the world is going to shit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think it makes it so much easier when we have religions that all of a sudden, God or the goddess wasn't the earth anymore. God or the goddess wasn't within us. It was thrown in the sky, far, far separate from humanity. And it's become so much more easier not to recognize divinity, in the earth, in each other, in ourselves. And again, that is to extract. That is
so
for that
reach
reason.
Outside of you for something.
Mm-hmm.
Reach outside of you for the divine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Right. Again, it's the MLM scheme.
Exactly. Exactly.
It's that.
Let's see. So is there anything else we want to talk about with the matrix or energetic attachments? And for anybody listening, if you join the backstage, you can get access to our community and you can ask questions. We have a free Telegram community. And what we can certainly do through the month of October is take some questions so we can answer them during these podcasts. I think questions are going to come up when we start to talk about all of these things.
About all the scarier stuff? The spookier stuff.
Spooky shit. Mm-hmm.
No, I think we talked about entities, the matrix, and vampires quite well. Yeah, I think the vampires in particular was just like, it's such a good conversation to have because, I don't do attachment removals or any of like that's completely Kate's. I'll do it occasionally, but I'm not too well versed in that. So really, I usually refer my clients when they're having that experience to other people who are more qualified, and just having this conversation about vampires with Kate. It's like I've only ever understood it from like mostly the indigenous perspective, based off of reading from, and then also like the shamanic or like the ancient shamanic wisdom of it. So just I think it's a good conversation to have for the times is all I want to say. And if, I think if you're someone who's also facilitating in a position of facilitation, whether that's yoga, whether that's being an actual priestess, whether there's so much, right? But like, I think just as most facilitators or practitioners from all sorts of backgrounds, whether you're somatic, whether you're, if you really want to look into a more holistic approach, I think learning about dealing with entities and energetic vampires is going to be critical. Just as someone being trauma informed is far more valuable now, being entity informed or being vampirically informed or vampire informed is also going to be critical in really, your results with your clients, your ability to continue to clear your channel.
And your ability to communicate with your deities and your goddesses, because the thing about the vampiric spirits that causes such a problem is that not enough people know about them. So there are some really, really powerful practitioners.
Or we know of them, but we just don't have the experience, right? We don't know exactly what we're looking for. And so we need to bridge that educational gap.
And there are priestesses who are really powerful channels, for example, who don't have an understanding of vampiric spirits or glamour. And so that your channel feels clear. It feels open. Your clairvoyance feels solid. And until you get the glamour out, there's a glamour wall between you and everything else. And this is why it is such a problem. Specifically when it comes to people who are holding space for others. Because I guarantee you, if you know about entities, but you haven't attacked this directly, it's still a problem. I don't know what else to say.
It's important. It's an important piece of your whole being, your wholeness, mind, body, and spirit. again, this is why so many indigenous cultures and, pre-colonial traditions
and we'll talk about
ceremonies.
that piece when we talk about the lost soul piece, because almost every indigenous culture has a vampire type of a spirit that they talk about.
Yes. Yeah.
And often that's wrapped up in the whole idea of a lost soul. So we'll talk about that retrieval separately. Yeah. And I think what I also just want people to understand is that when this stuff is in your field, you aren't going to feel it in other people necessarily. Mm-hmm. And if you are, you may not be able to identify it because it's in your field. So it doesn't feel foreign. It doesn't feel different. And as you start to get this stuff out of your field, you start to see how big of a problem this is in spiritual spaces. And this is why, like, I work with so many practitioners, and in my upcoming 12-month priestess training, like, this is a huge piece of it, is getting you completely out of this, like, matrix MLM scheme of the spirits and making sure that not only is your energetic field clear and your channel open and you're free of vampiric spirits, you can recognize it when it starts to happen. You can recognize when one, tries to, like, hook back in, if you will. And your energetic field is sovereign enough and in integrity and clear enough that it makes clearing this stuff off of other people so much easier. Mm-hmm. But yeah. Because I just can't tell you how many people I work with who it's like they're picking up attachments from other practitioners. Yeah. Practitioners who should have known better.
Yeah.
And if you are going to be a spiritual practitioner of any flavor, if you're going to be a priestess, it is your job to make sure that you know the things you need to know. Mm-hmm.
Finger snaps.
And having said that, I also have a lot of compassion for people who then wake up to it and fix it. Because you know what you know. You only know what you know.
Yeah.
And when you know more, then you change how you do things.
You do better. Everyone's happier.
So
anyway.
Everyone's healthier. Anything else that you can think of? Otherwise, I think we'll end it here and we will talk about more spooky things in the upcoming episodes. Definitely let us know what questions you have, because we can add like a little Q&A section to the rest of October's episodes, I think, if you're good with that. Maybe some listener stories, if anybody has good like spooky stories on hauntings and attachments and stuff.
I want to hear those.
Yeah, send them over and we'll do like a little Q&A segment and a little listener share segment here through October. That'd be fun.
Absolutely. Sounds good.
All right. Well, we will talk to you guys in the next episode. Bye.